Hi guys, it is November 13, 2015, and I am in Budapest, Hungary. So, regarding the migrant crisis, some interesting recent developments. The EU held a summit, sponsored of course by Angela Merkel, with the heads of states of various African countries, trying to secure the cooperation of those countries and in readmitting their own nationals who are illegally in Europe in exchange for mucho cash. Now, to me, this is this is simply perplexing. Why wouldn't these African states just readmit people who are nationals of those countries and who are illegally in another country? What is happening here? I mean, are the African states trying to extort money out of Europe? I mean, perish the thought. But in any event, they didn't agree to readmitting their own nationals. They said they would not do that. And they said that the amount of money made available to them was insufficient. Now, this is how Angela Merkel proposes to solve the migrant crisis. She wants to solve the migrant crisis essentially not through the use of force, not through the use of fences, but through wine and cheese summits with world leaders. For some reason, this woman doesn't have the courage, the guts, the cojones to order the security forces of her country and have the security forces of other European countries just tell these people who are coming to just go away. Oh, and if the Europeans are serious about that, these people will just go away. But for some strange psychological reason, Angela Merkel is, to her, this idea is terrifying. That she would use force to tell these people who are coming over in the hundreds of thousands to just go away. It is simply terrifying to her. Instead, she would rather have the Turkish government do that for her, or the African governments do that for her. But of course, the governments of these nations aren't really too thrilled about doing that, because why should they? What do they care? First of all, they're smelling weakness in the Europeans. And second of all, if hundreds of thousands and millions of their own countrymen end up in Europe and become increasingly influential by virtue of that in European affairs, that's better for them. It's called conquest. And conquest is beaten back by force, not by platitudes, not through wine and cheese summits, but by the use of force. Angela Merkel is right now hard at work trying to pull the same gimmick that she tried to pull with the Africans, with the Turks, offering them all types of concessions, including visa-free travel for the Turks into Europe. She actually also made that offer to the Africans. But that's not an offer that you need to make, because As Europeans, we're just protecting the neighborhood, and we have every right to do so, and we're within our rights, and we're not trampling on anybody else's rights. These Africans have an entire continent to themselves. The Middle Eastern people, they have their region of the world. I mean, the region of the world is rich in resources, both in the case of Africa and in the case of the Middle East. They can do great things with their societies. Now that they don't, I mean, it's a different matter altogether. But you know, we're within our rights. And because we're within our rights, we should be negotiating from a position of strength and not from a position of weakness. We should be telling them not what they need to do, but what will be done. You know, and in the case of the Africans, you know, I mean, obviously, when you're talking about the Africans, you really have to avoid saying certain things that, you know, just immediately come to mind. It's just the repeated failure of the Africans in developing their own countries is just, well, you know, predictable, unless you step into a worldview that has been favored by the European elites for quite some time. A worldview that is unrealistic, that does not match reality. And according to which these African societies, which should have already blossomed in ways that they have not blossomed. But be that as it may, these African societies, despite their failures, despite their many problems, they are not our responsibility. They are not our burden. The African people are not a burden that God created to screw over the European people. The African people have their own resources, their own continent, their own culture, their own ways of doing things. They have their liberty. They can do whatever they want. But, you know, what they should not do and what they should not be allowed to do is flood the European continent with millions of people to the detriment of the inhabitants of the European continent. Ours is the smallest continent. It's a small continent. Half of it is frozen tundra. So justice is on our side, and strength is on our side, and why we do not negotiate with these countries and these peoples from a position of strength when we have that strength is to me is just you know, is perplexing. But you know, I guess it has to do with the fact that when you're dealing with Africans, when you're dealing with people from the Middle East, you know, you can't really say what you think. You cannot really point out the obvious. You can't really point out unflattering truths. And you know, maybe that's something that makes sense. Maybe, you know, you should give them the benefit of kindness and generosity in certain settings. But in certain other settings, when the welfare of your entire civilization is threatened, you should not give them the benefit of kindness. You should not give them the benefit of not telling things and not speaking out about things that are plain as day. Not highlighting the shortcoming of these population groups. Shortcomings that nobody has ever figured out how to fix, and that probably have no means of fixing, and which are innate to the people of Africa and to the people of the Middle East. And you know, good for them. They are the way they are. I don't want to change them, but I don't want them to change me either. I don't want them to change my future, my family, my neighborhood, my city, my country, my civilization in a forced marriage that has no reason to occur. Because, you know, if you think about it, what we're doing is that, you know, we have a daughter, which is Europe. a beautiful, yeah, let's just say it, a beautiful, blue-eyed, blonde, stunning woman. And we're taking the worst of the bunch, the most uneducated, idiotic, drunken man, and we're forcing our daughter to marry that man, even though that man beats her, mistreats her, commits all sorts of crimes and outrages against her. And you know, I don't think we're being fair to her daughter. I don't think we're being fair to Europe. And leaders who do not understand that, who are being guided by flawed notions of morality that would validate such a forced marriage, should be shown the way out of their leadership roles. All right, take care, guys.